While the visual effects and sound effects for the action scenes may deserve a little bit of a side eye, there is so much going on with the story when it comes to Imani that you may be willing to forgive its flaws. So to summarize the film, Imani, who goes by Faith at the beginning of the film, is a former soldier who, after suffering amnesia from what she thinks was a car accident, is mostly taken care of by her husband Xavier, who goes by Bryce. She, just to note, isn't fully under his care, like she's bedridden and just can't leave the house. She does have her own business, a little clothing fashion store, but for the most part, she goes to work, comes home, spends time with her husband and their adopted daughter. But one of the things that kind of mess with this fantasy that is being built up is that Imani keeps having these dreams of drowning, of maybe getting shot at and stuff like that, which you would think is just PTSD from her career in the military, but we learn it's much more than that. And as her memory starts to clear up and she starts to break free of what fantasy Xavier had set up for her, she starts to get some lucidity and kind of wonders, as more and more information comes at her, who deserves the revenge that has been long overdue. So breaking down the characters, as noted, Imani is someone who mostly seems to be a homebody, because outside of going to work at her fashion store, she doesn't really seem to go anywhere. And this is partly because of her husband Bryce and also having to take care of the child they adopted. But in another life, she came from a very big family empire dealing with liquor, among other things, and she was also a very proud soldier. But because of certain incidents, she ended up having a much more simpler life. Married to Imani's Xavier, who is a doctor in his new life, though previously he was also part of the military in a way. And he closely monitors Imani, especially when it comes to her taking her medication. But as time goes on, you realize that medication is less so because Imani needs to take it and more so he wants her to in order to maintain this life he's built up for them. The next person we're going to bring up is General Michelle Dupree, who is Imani's former commanding officer, who was part of an operation that Imani was in that is notable when it comes to the storyline. But that was then. Right now, the main thing that General Dupree's worried about is running for president, as well as her long ties with Imani's family, which are not as copacetic as they used to be, especially because of her no longer working with Raymond Sr., who was Imani and Raymond Jr.'s father, but instead working with Raymond Jr., aka Supreme. Who is Raymond Jr., aka Supreme? He is the new head of the Avant business empire, and compared to his father, it's been said that he doesn't understand loyalty, respect. He doesn't really hold the same type of values as his dad did, even though he still has the same kind of business dealings, which, whether you want to talk about the legit stuff or the stuff that deserves an eyebrow raise, it becomes very clear that Raymond Jr. has plans for a business that his father may not approve of, but with his father dead, no one's really there to stop him. And if it comes of Imani, his sister, well, things are complicated. Next person we're going to bring up is Khalil, who is one of Raymond Jr.'s hitters when it comes to things that he's taken care of. And lastly is Senator Grant, who is a senator who's opposing General Dupree's run for president and is betting on Imani knowing something that could easily take down his competition, if only he can get access to what she knows. So when it comes to highlights with Imani, I think the first thing that has to be noted is, yes, this film can feel a little bit long, but as you get into all the drama and everything that this film wants to explore, it almost feels like it's trying to be a pilot more than it is trying to be a film. For as you learn about the Imani's family business, from what Raymond Jr. is doing, what Raymond Sr. likely set up, then there's the involvement of Michelle Dupree into the family business, who Khalil is, this other gentleman who's not mentioned because he doesn't really say or do much. There's a lot going on. And then when you add in Bryce and his part in Imani's life, not to forget Senator Garrett and what he may have going on, you get a lot of stories stuffed into 2 hours. And while things do admittedly start off slow, as they pick up and you get drawn to the drama, the chaos, and time begins to fly right by. Switching to the low points. Unfortunately, like a lot of films that we see that come from BET Plus, All Black, and other stations which cater to trying to empower the next generation of Black creatives, you have to lower your standards when it comes to the visual and sound effects. Sound effects wise, you see and hear people making those grunt sounds when they're punching and kicking, but you don't really hear the sound of impact that much. And then when it comes to visual effects, which is a much bigger issue, it's just inconsistent. There's gun use in the film, yet in the moment when a gun is being used, you may hear the sound of bullets flying, but you don't hear that. You don't see that little light come from the gun. Yet in video recordings, then you suddenly get the light. People get shot at, and you would think there would be blood afterwards, but there isn't. Yet in other times, you'll see blood come from them. Also, there's an explosion during a flashback to Afghanistan where you would think there would be something more brutal, but the visual effects don't really coincide with that. But I can go on and on, unfortunately, and I just want to just put it out there that if you're not used to, you know, how All Black, BET Plus, and other networks handle their action scenes, this could be a real issue for you. But if you've already known to lower your standards from the get-go, which is really unfortunate that you have to do that for a lot of these type of films, but if you're used to doing that already, you'll be fine. You know what the deal is. But if you're not used to that, this could become an issue for you. So the on-the-fence topic for Imani is that it sets up a sequel. Now, if this was marketed as a pilot, where it's a 2-hour pilot then following up with a series, this having the cliffhanger that it has wouldn't be so bad. However, after nearly 2 hours and now at the end of the movie we get a new villain, there's a setup involved when it comes to one of the protagonists, and you're just kind of left on this cliffhanger. It's like, why? You just spent 2 hours going through so much more depth than you probably needed to, and now you're gonna just leave us on this cliffhanger that's supposed to justify another 90-minute to 2-hour film. So overall, Imani unfortunately is one of those films where you have to adjust your expectations going in, because like most indie Black action films that we get from various networks, while it's an overall enjoyable experience, you can't put it next to what Netflix will put out or any other blockbuster, because it doesn't have the budget. And because it doesn't have the budget, you get a lot of visual effects that are lacking, sound effects that, don't give that extra oomph. But thankfully, what often we don't get in money when it comes to these films, they usually compensate in either performances or story. And I would say when it comes to Imani, it does both in a way that may not make it like a classic in some kind of way, but it's at least enjoyable.